Have you ever heard a piece of music that just grabs you? You know, something with serious power, a ton of soul, and just this big city energy? Well, today we're jumping right into a style of jazz that's all about that feeling. We're talking about hard bop.
So, picture this. It's the mid-1950s, and some musicians are starting to feel like jazz is getting a little too in its own head. It was becoming super complex, sometimes a bit distant and, almost too cool for its own good. A new generation of players decided, it's time to bring the fire back. And that fire was hard bop. On one side, you had this style called cool jazz, which was super laid back, kind of like a chill day on the West Coast. But hard bop was its total opposite. It was gritty, it was loud, and it was packed with emotion. This was the sound of big cities like New York and Detroit, full of this driving, powerful energy that you could really feel. So what is it that gives hard bop that unique, high-octane sound? Let's pull back the curtain and break down the musical ingredients that really create that signature energy. It all starts with a magic number. For the classic hard bop band, that number was 5. 5 members, creating a sound that was just perfectly balanced and incredibly powerful.
And here's your lineup, the classic quintet. Right up front, you've got the trumpet and the tenor saxophone. They often play melodies together, creating this huge, powerful frontline sound. And holding it all down is the rhythm section. Piano, bass, and some really active drumming.
One of the coolest techniques they used is something called call and response. You can think of it like a conversation, but with music. One instrument plays a short idea, that's the call, and then another instrument answers right back with its own phrase, the response. It makes the music feel super interactive and alive.
Now, you can really see how hard bop grew out of an earlier style called bebop. Bebop was all about showing off, with these ridiculously fast and complicated solos. Hard bop took that speed, but slowed it down just enough to lock into a really strong groove. The melodies got simpler, catchier, and the focus shifted from just one person shredding to the whole band sounding tight as a team. So, where did this new soulful sound actually come from? Well, the secret was going back, way back to the roots of African American music.
And this chart really shows you the recipe. Hard bop took a huge helping of the raw emotion from the blues, mixed it with the joyful, spiritual feeling of gospel music, and then fired it all up with the driving energy of rhythm and blues.
The influence from the blues was just massive. Hard bop musicians often used that classic 12-bar blues format, and they'd bend certain notes, we call them blue notes, to make their instruments sound almost like a human voice, telling a story full of deep feeling. At the same time, a lot of these musicians grew up playing music in church, so they brought those big, uplifting gospel chords and those hand-clapping rhythms right into the jazz club. It created this amazing feeling of joy and community, and it even started a whole sub-style that we now call soul jazz.
Okay, so a sound this powerful doesn't just appear out of thin air, right? It was shaped by some absolutely incredible musicians. So let's meet the architects who actually built hard bop.
First up, you have to talk about the powerhouse drummer, Art Blakey. His band, the Jazz Messengers, was famous for its intense, driving rhythm. Blakey himself was known for his loud, explosive drumming, especially these things called press rolls that sound like thunder. His band basically became a training ground for generations of future jazz legends. Then there's Horace Silver, the pianist who pretty much brought the funk to jazz. He wrote these amazing songs with melodies that would get stuck in your head and these groovy, repetitive bass lines that just made you want to move. Silver proved that jazz could be brilliant and complex, but also super fun and danceable.
And if you had to pick one instrument to be the voice of this whole era, it would have to be the tenor saxophone. I mean, with its deep, rugged, muscular tone, it was the perfect lead voice. Players like the incredible Sonny Rollins and John Coltrane just pushed the instrument to its absolute limits, making it shout and sing.
And you really can't tell the story of hard bop without talking about Blue Note Records. This record label was absolutely essential. They gave these musicians a place to record, they paid for rehearsals, and they captured their sound with this amazing clarity. And on top of all that, their album covers are some of the most iconic graphic designs in music history. Seriously, look them up. Okay, so this music was a huge deal back in the 50s and 60s. But why should you care about it today? Well, here's the thing. You're probably hearing its influence a lot more than you even realize.
Just check this out. It's a straight line. The powerful grooves and funky rhythms that hard bop musicians created back in the 50s were discovered decades later by hip-hop producers in the 90s. They started sampling those old records to create brand new beats, and that legacy just keeps on going, inspiring so many of today's jazz and neo-soul artists. Seriously, hard bop's legacy is everywhere. It's the main style that's taught in most jazz schools. That classic 5-person band, still the most common setup for a jazz group. And maybe most importantly, it's set a new standard for playing with incredible skill, but also with raw, honest emotion and a whole lot of soul.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Hard bop took the sounds of its time, the blues, gospel, R&B, and created something timeless that's still echoing today. So, what sounds from our world right now? What beats, what melodies will musicians be sampling and learning from 70 years in the future? It's a pretty cool thing to think about. Thanks for tuning in.